Hi everyone, welcome back for another whiskey review. Well, today is day 7 and I am very excited. Now, hopefully by now you've seen my last whiskey review, which was just an absolute belter. Really enjoyed it. I'm doing the series of reviews out of this advent calendar, which has been just magic. And I haven't done advent calendar properly for a little while. So I thought, I've had this box here for a little while, well, since 2019. It's waited long enough and I'm really getting stuck into it now and on to whiskey number 7, which in fact is one of my favorite distilleries. And we'll get into it why. So this is the Jura 21-year-old, the Tide Time it's called. Now, I've actually been to Jura. Not a lot of people been to Jura. I spent a whole week on Islay during my trip to Scotland in 2018. And I made some polite inquiries, and turns out you can take your vehicle. There's this ferry that goes, well, many times a day. So paid my ticket. And there I was on Jura with my little, I think it was Volkswagen Polo, my rental car. And that particular place had long intrigued me, and I could probably one day record a whole 3-hour video of how beautiful Jura is, how much fun I had. Unfortunately, the distillery actually wasn't open, but the main reason I went onto the island was the nature and the beauty, and I went as far north I could along the road till the road actually finished and got a good look at the countryside, to the volcanic mountains, the paps, and just the raw beauty of this beautiful island, to the fact, one and only time in my life I've actually written a poem, because I was just absolutely in love with the land and just being so far away from home, well, complete opposite from New Zealand to where I was in Jura in Scotland. I wrote a poem, and this is how good it was. And I've always liked Jura dram, especially the 10-year-old, and done any number of non-age statement over the year. A lot of the people who don't take the time to try different Jura drams sort of talk them down because they heard in a blog somewhere Jura whiskies are not that great. I don't know. Try some of the whiskies and learn for yourself, make an opinion for yourself. Enough of the digression, while digressing. This is the same whiskey that we've got. Look at that natural color. Beautiful color. And very interesting cask aging, which we'll talk about in a minute. But just to confirm, 46.7% ABV. Now, what they've done here is the whiskey's been aged in ex-American bourbon barrels, and it's been there for a long time. And then they've aged it further in brand new oak barrels, which is, well, very interesting. And to the fact, I would have drunk well over 2,000 different whiskeys, and I'm just trying to think if anyone else has done it. I can't think of a whiskey I've tried, especially from Scotland, where it's long aged in that traditional aging process, ex-bourbon barrel. And often it will go in a sherry cask, or will go into a port cask, red wine cask, sometimes combination of 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 other casks. In fact, Jura themselves do this whiskey called a 7 wood, which is whiskey aged in 7 different casks. But sitting here right now, I can't recall, especially Scotch whiskey that's been finished in a brand new oak cask, which is, very interesting. Virgin white oak cask. Right, let's see what's it like on the nose first, and then we'll move on to the palate. One important thing I didn't touch on, in New Zealand, it retails for around $350, $370. So whatever that might be in US dollars and euro, about $370. Ooh, spice. That lovely, rich, gingery smell is there. And this is the thing, if you just gave me this whiskey tonight, and I, by the way, drank a whole bottle of this back in the day, didn't bother to review, obviously. If you didn't tell me all of the information, I would have guessed there's some sherry cask aging, because there is the ginger, light spice that comes to the nose, the toffee as well that comes to the nose. But I guess that's where it's that using brand new virgin oak cask is giving it a robustness, that spice, that sort of extra step. Oh, caramel. Very, very rich on the nose. I like this on the nose a lot. In fact, out of the 7 whiskies I've tried out of this box so far, I like this on the nose most. There you go. I've said it. And I mean, this box so far has had some heavy hitters, some heavy hitting space outers. But this on the nose is very, very, very rich. Wow, this like there's an underlying sweetness, you know, like not of the ripe fruits, but it's there. There's like a malt sort of biscuity character on the nose as well. Oh, so good. Really good. All right, let's see what's it like on the palate. Mmm. Wow. A spice. Not rich spice. It's there. And I'm drooling. There's just an explosion of flavors. The ginger type note carries on the palate. There's rich sweetness. The maltiness, I was talking about it before, is there as well. The biscuity character is really nice. Intertwined with that gentle spice. There's a little bite to the whiskey. And I'm kind of just ready for it to die down because I feel like I found more sweetness in this whiskey. But in fact, for me tonight, I haven't drunk anything else. You know, I've had dinner earlier, which is lovely lamb. And this is the first alcoholic beverage I'm having tonight because, you know, my palate hasn't been warmed up. I haven't had a wine or beer or anything. Straight into a very, very long age Jura. All right, I'm going to have one more sip. See if I can find some of that sweet richness that I found last time. Mmm. It's there, but I'm getting a bit more of the dry fruit character, like almonds. Really nice. Very, very nice. Oh, this is a bloody good whiskey. See, for me, it's almost tragic now because I've long admired Jura whiskies from the distillery of Jura. I wouldn't say I was a super fan for the number one reason. We don't really get many limited editions, not in New Zealand anyway. And they don't really do some crazy experiments, you know. They kind of, I don't know, just a weird little brand that does some releases and there's nothing for a long time, you know, like things that I've liked in the past, Kalila, Bruichladdich, Teeling, because there's a new limited edition every 3-6 months. So you've got something to look forward to. With Jura, there's really very rarely something new comes. So when it comes, you know, obviously I try and grab a bottle, try and drink it. But now that I've been to the land and I've made a deep, deep emotional connection with the land, you know, I mean, sitting here tonight, I can just see visions of this beautiful land. It was just truly remarkable, truly remarkable. And in fact, some of the most favorite and memorable photos I took from the trip, which I shared with friends, and they said, wow, well, they try to give me credit, saying, wow, how beautiful, you know, these photos of the nature you've taken. And I've said, I've done nothing. I've just pointed the camera. It's just how good the land is. And I remember, I'm not going to sit here and read the whole poem again. You know, that could be for another night. I've shared it on Burns Nights many times. But I remember saying something very particular that I hope to bring my own to this land. And by that I mean, you know, my family, my son, my daughter, and my wife. You know, I think it would be just quite cool to show them this particular land. And also, like, I mean, I remember looking at the Paps and the mountains, you know, and coming back to New Zealand, and not far from where I live in Hamilton, we have this place called the National Park. And I remember going through the National Park, and it reminded me of a lot of the beauty, you know, the grassy mountainsides and a bit of a stream coming through the side of the mountain. It reminded me a lot of it, and actually kind of made me appreciate the beauty we have in New Zealand as well. You know, there's a lot of similarities, but there can only be one Jura, and there could only be one Jura 21-year-old. Price-wise, it's up there, right? I mean, but this is a Scotch whiskey. 21-year-old Jura is not a big distillery. You're paying a lot, but I would 100% recommend, if you have that kind of income and you have the ability to buy whiskeys at that level, you definitely grab a bottle. You will not be disappointed. Very, very nice whiskey. I would happily open another one. In fact, I'm going to open my own bottle. I've got one more left. I'm going to open it. Well, that's all I've got to say about this particular whiskey. If you're liking the content, please like, share, subscribe. Otherwise, I'll be back here tomorrow night with whiskey number 8. See you later. Bye-bye.